Thank you for joining us today for the virtual Sunday service with the Center for Creative Living. CCL, a charter of the Universal Church of the Master, has served and supported the spiritual needs of its community here in the Bay Area for over 20 years.
Good morning and welcome to the Center for Creative Living. And I'm the Reverend Doti Boon, and we have a great day for you. Well, most Sundays are wonderful at CCL, but this is special. We're going to start off with a prayer by our Reverend Dr. Ayleen Augustine, who is the president of the Universal Church of Master. And that church is our parent church. And her prayers are always wonderful, as are the prayers from all of our prayer messengers, whether they're just channeling it or whether they wake up in the morning and just have an inspiration. Whatever it is, the prayers are unique and wonderful. And then our speaker is Scout Bartlett. I get all wiggly when I think of Scout. I have known Scout for so many years. We both forget how long it's been. I was lucky enough to be on the radio station and spend 9 years with Scout. And he is in the longest running self-help, spiritualist, metaphysical, whatever you want to call it, life insights, and with Scout. And it's been the longest one running in the nation. Yes, his show is incredible. And he has picked a topic he's going to be talking about that sounds so amazing. It's called, let me read it to you. Never before on this earth, ... Here we are again. I know that he's going to be talking about things from Atlantis to the next reincarnation of this planet. He is amazing with the gifts that he has. And following that, our Reverend Dr. Janet Childs is going to be doing a meditation. Now, she writes all of her music, all of the meditation, just for a certain Sunday. Isn't that something? We have all these gifted people. And talking about gifted people, the person who puts this together and does the video, Reverend Corry Gott, she's going to be speaking. Yep, next week she's going to be talking about I love hypnosis. For some of you who don't know it, she's a very good hypnotherapist. And you're going to get to see the person behind the camera. And then, before September 6th, the 30th of August is my birthday. And we're going to do a birthday celebration. For those who've known me for a long time, they go, oh, here we go again. Because I celebrate every year that I'm on the planet. And I started that when I was very young, when I was 5 years old, having celebrations. And I've done it every year since. Because I believe each of our birthdays is special and unique. So be sure you join me on the 30th of August so we can celebrate together. And then, as I mentioned, September 6th, that's going to be our Reverend Joyce C. Brown. And for you, if you haven't heard Joyce C., you have a really good special day for you. So please enjoy, sit back, and watch the program CCL. Okay?
Well, good morning, everyone. This is Dr. Ayleen, and as Dottie mentioned, I am the president of the Universal Church of the Master. It is my honor to do the morning prayer this morning, and it's also my pleasure to put together this video. You know, it takes a lot of different hands and different efforts in order not just to put together a video for a Sunday service, but to hold together a church and a charter. And Doti Boon has been doing an amazing job of holding together and nurturing and growing the Center for Creative Living Charter that has been here for over 2 decades, helping people and taking care of them. And that hasn't stopped. And I'd like to commend Doti for the fact that this church and this charter continue to serve this community. So if you have a need and you want to reach out, then please do so, because there will be someone there waiting to listen and to offer help and offer support. And if it is within your ability to assist the church and CCL specifically with donations, because these are very tough times and the center hasn't been able to function in the way it normally has, please consider giving as generously as you can. And the information for donation will be at the end of the video. So these have been pretty tough times, and it doesn't look like it's going to get a whole lot better anytime soon. And I've had conversations with more than a couple of people this week about wondering, where is God? And why is it that God would let these things happen? And my only answer is, it's not that God lets things happen. The greatest gift God gave us is free will. And because God believes in us so much that we need to go through what we need to go through and learn from it, and that we need to be able to figure it out, because there is that belief in us that we can come through this, that we can move forward, that we can grow. So if God is willing to believe in us so much that our free will is still ours, and that we have the chance to work through and mess it up and get it right, and finally be able to step into that higher level of compassion and consciousness. If we're being given that opportunity, and if God has that much faith in us, I think we can have that much faith in God. So take a nice deep breath in, and as you exhale, just let anything that's weighing on your body, your mind, or your spirit kind of fall into that little imaginary basket next to you, because that's your care basket. Because at this moment and in this space, you don't need to hold on to those things. Dear blessed and wonderful Creator, we thank you for this day, and we thank you for our lives. We thank you for all the gifts and love you give with each and every moment and with each and every breath. Thank you for the blessing of your support and the blessing of your presence, because we know that even in these dark times, you are right there with us, that you would never abandon us, that you would never leave us alone, that you are cheering us on and telling us, I know you can do this. You have it in you. I am with you. I would never leave you alone in this darkness. Trust in me and trust in that light that I placed within you. Because if you look around and you only see darkness, that means that you are the source of that light. Creator, let us remember that always. And let us send out the blessing that you pour on each and every one of us. May that go out in our prayers to all of creation, especially those who need it most. Creator, we believe in you. And we know that it's not just when we're getting what we want that you are present. We know that in those darkest times, even when we're upset with you, even when we don't understand, you, like a good parent, are always there, and always know that once we grow a little bit more, then we will understand. So thank you for everything you give and everything you are. And Creator, whatever it means to you, we hope you have a wonderful day. For all of your creation to the next 7 generations and beyond. Aho Matako Yasin, Ago, 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 by earth, sea, and sky. Namaste, Shalom, Assalamu Alaikum, blessed be, Amen.
Hey, happy Sunday morning. Sunday morning cheers to you. Happy Doti Church cheers. Welcome. Glad you're here. For those of you that haven't met me before, hi, I'm Scout. Doti and I have known each other since before we met, as she would tell you if she was doing the introduction. So it's really great to be here. Glad I'm here. And I'll have to say that I'm hoping you have some fabulous snacks set aside, because, you know, after Doti Church, there's always got to be snacks. So I'm hoping you've created your own potluck. Now, I got a lot to talk about. We're in the midst of a tremendous energy transformation. We're in the midst of uplifting the physical level frequency of Earth. As my guidance describes it, we're in the midst of uplifting the physical level frequency of Earth from being numbers not important, because I've heard people referencing to third dimension, fifth dimension, 27th dimension, 9 3/4 portal. 42 is perfect. Numbers notwithstanding, my guidance describes this, that we're in the midst of elevating the frequency of Earth from being the frequency of a third grade classroom into being the frequency of a fourth grade classroom. We're elevating from third grade classroom to fourth grade classroom. So what's going on? That's the transformation that's going on. And we're seeing lots and lots and lots and lots of symptoms of this transformation. It just is. We're seeing a whole ton of the symptoms of this transformation, but that's what's going on. The pandemic virus, the wild changes in government, earthquakes, volcanoes, storms, seeing the continent of Antarctica again, watching the magnetic North Pole drift at a faster rate than what it's been drifting historically for a long time. All symptoms of this uplifting, transforming of physical level energy. That's what we're here to do. We're not just here. We're not just here to be uplifting our own energy. We're not just here to be untangling our own lessons. We're here uplifting and transforming the whole energy frequency of physicality in addition to our own part of the pie. So we're in the midst of uplifting this physical level frequency from what guidance has described as a second grade classroom to a third grade classroom. Now, each year for a bunch of years, I've done what we call a Holy Days message. It's a trance message that I do at the end of the year, right around December solstice. In which case, guidance gets to speak directly to us. Now, guidance has been talking about this transformation for a while, a lot of years. And I'm finding it really useful at this point, the same way that the first time that I fell down and scraped my knee or skinned my knee or got solid road rash going on, you know, that I had a mom around that could teach me to get all the gravel out of it, even if that hurt, was a really good idea. But also that I had a mom around that could teach me not to pick at the scab so that it wouldn't scar. That was the understanding I had. And additionally, that when it started to itch, I had a mom around that could tell me that itching meant it was healing. That the itching did not mean it was, you know, some alien fungus that was going to eat through to my bone like some horror movie. But she could tell me that that itching was healing. And I found that really handy. Found it really handy to know that what that symptom meant. And so I'm finding it really handy that guidance over the years of those Holy Days messages, finding it really handy that guidance has given us a whole series of symptoms that we could look at and expect as we went through this transition of taking the Earth frequency from second grade to third grade. Excuse me, from third grade to fourth grade, my bad. Again, numbers notwithstanding, I'm just trying to keep my analogy straight. Among the things that they told us that we could watch for and recognize, among the places that this transition would be like the itch under my, my torn up knee. One was that we would see our connection to our intuition, expanding. Because essentially what we got is this was the frequency we were accustomed to being at. I'm still learning my camera angles. This was the frequency we were accustomed to being at. And this is the frequency of intuition or the alternate planes. we used to have that much distance between, but as we've been elevating the frequency of our reality, we're finding ourselves closer and closer to that frequency that we were used to as being an intuitive frequency. Finding ourselves closer and closer to that frequency as an intuitive frequency, which means that you're noticing that your psychic stuff is coming right to the surface and being way more accessible, but also to a degree, way more in charge. Your psychic stuff is coming straight up to the surface, being more accessible, but also to a degree, more in charge. You're probably noticing it surfacing. I'm having funny stuff happen even in my sessions where, you know, I'm professionally psychic, so I've always been kind of psychic in my sessions, but it's showing up even with even more little quirky, weird, wow, I didn't see that one coming kind of experiences. Another piece that they spoke about was that, again, if this was the reality level we were accustomed to, and this was, we'll call it, the frequency of that, of the veil between us and people that are not in bodies, if that was the distance we were used to between us and those that were across the veil, we're also noticing that we're elevating our day-to-day frequency closer and closer to that not on this planet veil. Falls together with the same thing we were talking about. So you may be noticing really big waves of feeling very, very closely connected with people that you love that have crossed over. You may be noticing that that sense of connection with them and those waves of feeling connected with them are showing up way more intensely with way more closeness than they had for a while. Now, one of the other pieces that have been sort of entertaining to watch is that they also mentioned that as we moved up in frequency, it was going to be harder and harder to hide a deception. Yep, that as we moved up in frequency, it would be harder and harder to hide a deception. Now, not commenting on a party or a party affiliation or a side of anything, but you may have noticed that some of the people who have been politicians, or even for that matter celebrities, but particularly politicians, you may have noticed that some of the people that have been politicians for decades are pulling stunts that are not agreed as being within the rules, and yet they're stunned when they notice that there's been a to-do made about this stunt they just pulled. They're stunned with that, and they've been very careful not to say it so far. But if you watch their faces, you'll see it really closely. When one of those political players gets busted doing something that's outside the rules, you're going to see their face that's basically going to be saying, well, this is what we've always done. Why are you making a big to-do about this now? And they've been careful not to quite say that. But it's right there. This is what we've always done. Why are you making a big to-do about it now? What the heck is up? I don't see that this is any different. And then they'll wander off into some distraction to try and, like, you know, move the shells around fast enough that you forget that there's a prize under one of them. Yeah. Harder and harder to hide deception. Now, one of the other pieces guidance disguise, again, this is just your scraped knee itching. These are all symptoms that guidance predicted that we would get to see, so that we get to remember that we're not in a reality system with some God sort of mighty not paying attention, but that we are in a system where we could still consider there being a whatever we think of as God. And I have to say that my God is no longer the bearded old dude in the chair. My God's more like a big energy cloud. But, yeah, well, yours is whatever yours is, fine with me. We're still in a reality system where it is God Almighty, not sort of mighty. These are all symptoms we can recognize to know that we're still on track from a cosmic perspective. It seems like we're maybe in a handbasket headed south in a hurry from a real world gauge, but we're still on track from a cosmic perspective. One of the other symptoms that guidance described is that we would see a tremendous amount of polarity, not just disagreement, but that we would be seeing a tremendous amount of polarity, where each polarity, you know, where the polarity was separating further and further. And it was so polarized that you'd really be able to vividly see it. Yep, haven't you noticed? In fact, we're so polarized now, I noticed that it's hard to even have a conversation without one, call it side of the polarity, or the other pole of the polarity getting really adamant. And you can recognize that no matter which polarity you're on, you'll look at the other pole of this polarity and be able to go, how on earth could they possibly believe that? And when I'm trying to talk sense to them, they're just going, I don't want to know, I don't want to know, I don't want to know, I don't want to know. Don't mess with my belief system. Don't bother me with the truth when I've already made up my mind. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. It's pretty intense, like pretty wildly intense. And it's hard for me to meditate on a piece I learned a number of years back, which is that in any given dispute, everybody thinks they're the good guy and that the other person is the problem. So it's fun to remember that, even while we're trying to recognize how the other pole of the polarity could possibly have such a different view than ours. Being really careful here, because it's not about who's right or wrong out in that stuff. We're only talking about the fact that we're in the midst of elevating this frequency from, call it, third grade classroom to being a fourth grade classroom. And we're watching the symptoms of that. And it's handy to recognize that those symptoms were predicted, seen in advance, and exactly on track. I mean, one of the jokes my guidance cracked in one of the Holy Day messages quite some long time ago, they cracked the joke of after they'd talked about a whole lot of these changes coming down, they cracked the joke of saying now was, then was not a good time to be buying yourself a really expensive Earth globe that had political country boundaries printed on it. Because one of the pieces they talked about is that we were going to see political changes and even the boundaries of countries in significant change. Yep, here we are. We've seen a number of places where countries have sort of absorbed pieces of or parts of other. I'm not saying they're right or wrong. It's not the discussion. But we're seeing a lot of places where countries have sort of absorbed pieces or parts of of what used to be other countries, and their boundaries have changed. Again, it's all about knowing that we're on track in the midst of this spiritual transformation. Yeah. Guidance has said to me that the last time we saw this on this plane of reality was when we saw the reality system called Atlantis elevate into being the reality system we now call Earth. And that we're in the midst of that same kind of a change of taking the reality system of Earth up a notch to whatever it'll be called then. Whatever. Dilbert land. I don't care. Let's call it Dottie land. Now, a lot of you will have been recognizing that there's a part of you, perhaps way deep, but that there's a part of you that's been having a lot of what I would call bleed through memories. Old past life, previous life, other lifetime, other place, other time, other names, bleed through memories of being in this kind of a transition before, and there's a piece of you that's sort of clenching for the cataclysm. Now, I've had a lot of conversations with guidance about whether or not this transformation has to be death and explosion and oceans and floods and people dying everywhere cataclysm. And I'm not really clear it has to be. But it gets kind of confusing when we think of this, again, as a third grade classroom in a small school in a small town that's only ever had one classroom. And they never had a fourth grade classroom yet, as it were. So we've got a bunch of newly graduated second graders in the third grade classroom that are really still kind of in their second grade mentality. We've got a bunch of early third graders in the third grade classroom who are still deeply immersed in the earliest lessons of third grade. We've got a bunch of advanced third graders in the third grade classroom who are not really as immersed in those early third grade, much less second grade frequency issues. And then we've got some third graders who are actually ready to graduate to fourth grade, but they didn't graduate because, you know, what the heck, might as well stay here. They're going to let them change the classroom around me rather than me exit and go find another classroom. Much the same as the joke about Silicon Valley that says that you know you work in Silicon Valley if you've worked for 6 different companies and never changed desks, right? So we've got this polarity that I'm going to define as the recently graduated second graders and early third graders, and the advanced third graders and ready to graduate fourth graders. And all right, I'll confess, every time I talk about this, I recognize that my ego is sufficient that I always believe I'm either a well-advanced third grader or I'm a ready for fourth grader, but I stayed in third grade to help with the remodel. Because a lot of us were here when we did this transition from Atlantis to Earth. And we volunteered to be here to support, aid, help, be a part of, or because we just thought we'd be that good at it, this transition from Earth to Dottie World. I like it. I'm staying with that. I could live in Dottie World. I think that'd be fun. So I have noticed that frequently my mantra has sort of been, oh, what was I thinking? You know, what was I thinking? What was I thinking? When I decided that I was good at this transition stuff and that this would be a really good time for me to be here and help ride this thing out. Right now, when it feels a whole lot like we're almost at the end of the part of the roller coaster and ready to go through the big changes. And particularly anytime that I'm looking out into the world around me and it strikes my linear brain as, oh my God, we are all in a handbasket headed straight south, and nobody's got a hand on the brakes. Nobody's stepping up. Now, that's global stuff. That's bigger stuff. But in the same time period, we're all being affected by this acceleration of energy. I want to repeat it. The pandemic virus, the, killer wasps, if they ever show up, the dramatic changes in government approach, the dramatic changes in who's in charge of the guns, the dramatic changes of earthquakes and storms and weather and uncovering the continent of Antarctica. All of those changes are part of this elevation of frequency, converting us from second grade classroom to third grade classroom. I did it again, from third grade classroom to fourth grade classroom is what I meant. We're third grade, Earth was third grade. I keep jumbling my numbers, I apologize. All of that is just symptomology of this increase of energy flow. And so this increase of energy flow is also causing a fair amount of weirdness inside us. Not just because we've been quarantined, not just because we can't figure out what's true and what's not just because we can't figure out if we're doing the right thing to save our lives or if we're going to die, and not just because we've been having to hang out with our family or our housemates a lot more than we're used to. It was fun. I was talking with a client the other day that sells real estate. And I was worried, are you making a living? Are you doing okay? A question that we now are allowed to politely ask people. And she said, oh God, Scout, I'm busy as I can be. And I thought, oh, is that from the number of people that are having to sell their house before they go into foreclosure because their income stream is interrupted? She said, oh God, no. It's because everybody needs more space. Everybody's trying to move to a bigger house or a house with a bigger yard. Oh yeah, I get it. Let's get it further away from each other. And or the people that are really thinking ahead of time and recognizing that there's going to be a big push and movement for people to be able to work from home. Now, I recognize that in the last couple of weeks it's been making the news that managers are freaking out over the fact that they can't anally retent sufficiently enough when they don't have their thumb on people and they're working remotely. But I'm thinking we're going to see a really big movement for people to be able to work the majority of their job remotely rather than commute. So we'll see how that plays out. But people are moving, people are relocating because they need to get away from each other. So I'm just saying that the weirdness we're watching unfold in ourselves is not just from being in a state in the world that not only have we never seen it before in our lifetimes, the world has never seen it before. We want to remember that. This reality that's going on Earth right now has never been seen before. Nobody knows how to play this game. So nobody knows how to score it. Nobody knows how to keep track of it. Nobody knows how to decide whether or not it's the right thing or the wrong thing. Nobody knows how to play this game. And we can see that some people are guessing how to play the game, and their results are demonstrating, at least from a physical life aspect, looking like they're really, really good ideas. And we're seeing that some leaders are guessing how to play this game, and their results are not looking like, from a physical world, they're a really good idea. You know, the U.S. is #1 right now. God bless us. We set a record. But we want to remember that this has never been seen on Earth before, and yet here we are again. It just wasn't Earth when we were doing it before, but here we are again, doing something that's never been seen in this reality system before. Here we are again, doing something that's never been done before. Now, inside of us, this is bringing forth some really interesting stuff. My best metaphor right now would be to think of each of us as having one of those long, skinny, I'm going to make a giraffe balloons. Yeah, you couldn't see the other hand. Long, skinny, I'm going to make a giraffe balloon. As if each of us had one of those long, skinny balloons right up through the middle of us. It's been sort of partially inflated. Not fully inflated, just sort of partially inflated. And so we could suppress and submerge and bury and put under all kinds of trauma and rage and anger and distortion and, out-of-centeredness. We could suppress all of that way deep inside ourselves, because there was a way deep inside of ourselves to suppress it too. Except now, the energy flow that we're immersed in, that the whole reality system is immersed in, is inflating that long, skinny balloon through the middle of us. So that rather than it being partially inflated through the middle of us, it's inflating through the middle of us, which means that all of that stuff that I could suppress way deep in next to that skinny balloon is now getting pushed outward toward the surface. All of that stuff that I could suppress, submerge, bury, hide from, not know, is now getting pushed out toward the surface as that long, skinny balloon is inflated. Which means that as individuals, it's not all of those other external symptoms that are bringing our emotions to the surface. It's us having all of that buried stuff pushed out to the surface. All right. A few weeks ago, my dearest friends who live in LA, some of y'all know them, some have met them. My dear friends that live in LA and we each set a start date, and then we did 2 weeks of really intensive isolation. Checking our temperatures, checking blood ox levels, and maximizing the isolation for 2 weeks. And then at the end of 2 weeks, when we recognized we were all healthy, I went down and visited with them in LA for a few days, a week, a little over a week. We merged our quarantine circles, and I felt like we did it responsibly. So one evening while I was in LA, I'm there with this couple that are my friends. Lovely people. I love them dearly. We've been friends for ages. And we're watching some sort of tearjerker movie, and I can't even think of what it was right now. It's just not coming to mind. I'll figure it out. If you're really that curious, email me. I'll find out what it was. And I'm not the least bit surprised, because I have been noticing that even a really solidly good tearjerker commercial is enough to have my cheeks wet and have tears flowing. It's just right there. So I'm not the least bit surprised, and I'm sort of, I'm guy style. I'm just wiping tears and trying not to make a big deal of it and trying to not blubber. But I'm in this tearjerker movie, and I'm like definitely weeping. And then out of the corner of my eye, I noticed that the husband half of the couple is also guy style wiping tears, and that the wife part of the couple is blowing her nose. And it was really sweet because we got to the end of the movie, and she just looked up and she said, "That's why you guys are my two favorite men. That I can sit here and watch a chick flick, and that both of you will be crying too. You're my faves." But we're all having that, where those emotions are getting pushed right up to the surface. Whether the emotions are tears, whether the emotions are grief over people that we're missing, whether the emotions are get my buttons pushed and enraged, because I found it fascinating. Traffic on Highway 5 was better than usual. But I don't know if y'all have noticed, but among the things that are getting pushed to surface is people's recklessness and their boldness and their "I don't care about you, I only care about me" stuff. Well, on the highways and on the streets, that comes out interestingly to where, but I found myself like really angry at these people that were driving inappropriately to my eye. In my head, now I didn't do it out loud, and I didn't flip anybody off, but in my head, I was like raging at these people for their driving approach. Whether they were the person that was doing, that slowed down next to a truck and slowed the whole highway down to 15 or 20 miles slower than the speed limit, or whether it was the person that, even though I was doing slightly in excess of the speed limit, flew by me like I was standing still, which meant they had to have been doing 110 or more. Roar! Big emotions coming up, big growly stuff coming up. All of that emotion is getting pushed to the surface. But in addition to that, those deeper suppressed traumas and traumatic memories and such are also getting pushed out to the surface, which means on one hand, there's going to be crap coming up. On the other hand, what an ideal time to purge that away. I mean, sorry for the analogy, but it turns out it's way easier to clean out the infection that causes a pimple once the pimples come to the surface than it is to try and clean it out when you can just feel, oh, there's something here, it's going to turn into something, way under the surface. Gross analogy. Forget I said that. We'll just erase that. We'll take it right off the thing. I never said it. That never happened. I never used that gross analogy, but here we go. And so what I want to do is I want to give you a prayerful technique that I'm not good at naming things, so I just call it rose and frame technique. And I know those of you that have studied Rosicrucian stuff, you're going to see some overlap with some Rosicrucian. Those of you who studied BPI are going to see some overlap with BPI. It's not like I invented this one. I just modified it and changed it in a way that I like and that I think works better, more gooder. But it's not like it was the Rosicrucian technique first either. I suspect that somewhere deep under the pyramid there's probably glyphs of this technique there as well. I just call it Rosenframe, or when I'm trying to get really fancy to make it sound like it's some exclusive German technique, I'll refer to it as Rosenframe technique. Just Rosenframe. It's a phenomenal self-work practice for lifting out anything that's running in loops in your subconscious, whether it's running in loops of replaying a picture of a thing that went on, whether it's running in loops of replaying an emotion that went with what was going on, whether it's running in loops of just some feeling, a depression or whatever, or whether it's running as an anger. It's a fabulous technique for being able to separate those imprinted traumas and bring them out of you and release the energy that was stuck in those imprinted traumas back to being yours. Current time, neutral energy. Here's the basic technique. The first thing I would do when I start this technique is that we've got a practice we call the Live Beam, L-I-V-E, Beam meditation practice. Life Insights, Vertical Energy Beam practice. We teach it in every single radio show we do. We host a radio show that broadcasts on Monday, Wednesday mornings. It's archived on the website. It's been recognized as the longest running major market personal growth radio program in the nation. Yeah. Life Insights Live. You can download it on the website. It's all free. There's hundreds of hours and more. Anyway, we teach this meditation, Live Beam. The simple part of that practice is to imagine reaching to the center of the earth, drawing a streamer of energy from the center of the earth up into your body, just in front of your tailbone, and then stretch that streamer of energy deep inside your body, just in front of your spine, stretch that streamer of energy up through your abdomen, through your chest, through your neck, through your head, out the top of your head, and all the way up and into a big cloud of energy that I'm just going to call source. So that we're uplifting a streamer of energy from the center of the earth right up through us all the way up and into source. And then using your will, because that's how we work with energy, increase, speed up, richer, denser, faster, increase the flow of energy up that beam from the center of the earth right up through you, up and into source. And any place that you notice that it's constricted or restricted, simply breathe to that and open it so that you can just will it that you have this beam of energy from the center of the earth right up through you, geysering, flowing, flooding, geysering like the old movies with they struck oil, geysering into that big energy cloud that is source. Having established that beam, the next thing you do is let the beam be in the background of your mind and recall that feeling, that emotion, that upset, that replaying traumatic picture, whether it's traumatic because it was painful or whether it's traumatic because it was the most wonderful thing that ever happened. How come the wonderful thing never happens again? Either way. Okay? Recall the feeling, the emotion, the upset, the picture, the mental movie, the play, the taste, the flavor, the sound, the tone, whatever sense you're adapted to. Recall that picture. Now, that feeling, that sense, you don't even have to know what it was. You can just have a very, very old feeling and work as the feeling. Then create a picture frame up slightly above eye level and in front of your head. I'm looking like I'm off to the side. It doesn't have to be. But create a picture frame slightly above eye level in front of you. Doesn't matter if it's a fancy museum frame or just the white frame around a snapshot. Now, allowing the beam to be your center point, lift that feeling, that emotion, that trauma, that upset, lift it up and out of you and into that frame. Lift that feeling, that upset, that memory, that picture, lift it up and out of you and into that frame. Put all of it into the frame. Get all of that feeling, all of that picture, all of that memory, all of that taste, all of that flavor, all of that frequency, all of that sound. Get all of it up and out of you, and I'm putting it down where you can see it, into that frame. So that you can be you with your beam, and all of that trauma, distress, upset, memory, upset, whatever, is in the frame. It's hard to do. That's step one. Lift it into the frame. And then imagine a rose, the flower, next to the frame, and pierce the side of the frame with the stem of that rose. Thus we have rose and frame, right? Imagine a rose, the flower, next to that frame, pierce the side of the frame with that rose, and allow that rose to draw up all of that energy from inside the frame, thriving on it. And you can fertilize roses with crap. Let that rose draw up all of that energy from inside that frame, thriving on it, until it even draws the frame itself in as energy. And now I've got this thriving rose that's maybe gotten huge because there's so much energy, that's maybe become a whole field of roses because there's so much energy, however it plays out. I now have this thriving rose full of energy that's even taken in the frame. The next step is now I dissolve that rose to let myself have a pool of now neutral rose-flavored energy. I dissolve that rose to let us have a pool of neutral rose-flavored energy. And then using my will, I will it that all of that energy flow back now, current time neutral. All of that energy flow back now to everyone involved, current time neutral, whether they're still on the planet or not. Doesn't matter. All of that energy flows back now, current time neutral, to everyone involved, which means a chunk of it's my energy. You don't even have to know where it's going, but I will say, because I've got, some of that sensitivity stuff going on, I frequently notice when I've been rose and framing out traumas from relationships, my mom shows up getting some of that energy. Now, my mom passed away when I was 18. So pretty much all of the major relationships in my life happened after she was off the planet. But she was part of the influences that created my structure and my pattern about relationships, so she was involved. Current time neutral, we send all of that energy back to everyone involved, current time neutral. Now, sometimes we're going to have some arch villain, There will be those moments where we have some arch villain that our brain is going to go, I don't want to give them any energy. They're an arch villain. You know, they don't deserve any energy, blah, 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 blah. So I'll just point out that the times at which we most clearly see ourselves are the times when our energy is elevated. So if your mind is saying, I don't want to send any energy back to that arch villain, really, that's your mind saying, I don't want that arch villain to end up having to see themselves with clarity. So maybe you do want to send that energy back to the arch villain, but still, current time, neutral, rose-flavored energy sent back to everyone involved, current time, neutral. And then fill yourself, allow yourself to be receiving all of that energy that flows back to you, because there's a chunk of your attention or your energy that's been all the way in, suppressed against that little tiny long balloon. It's now getting pushed to the surface, which is why you noticed it, right? As that balloon expands, stuff's getting pushed to the surface. Let that energy flow back in. Now, at the end of the process, just to give it closure for me, I would then quickly imagine my whole self to the core of me, all the way to the middle of that little skinny balloon that's getting bigger, filled with white light, and I would just disconnect from the whole process while I soaked in all of that energy. Rose and frame technique. Let yourself notice that stuff that's been buried is coming up for you. Let yourself notice that stuff that's been buried is coming up for you. Let yourself recognize that it's you and it's your stuff. And that even though this has never been here before in this reality system, here you are again doing this again. Just this time it's Earth. You're working through to uplift, transform physical level energy, to uplift, transform the energy in you that's gotten stuck, and to bring all of that forward, allowing yourself to be your own point of light. Our job in the midst of this transition is to do whatever we see there is for us to do. But in addition to doing whatever we see that there is for us to do, our biggest part of the job is to be steadily bringing ourselves back to the core of ourselves, lighting ourselves up and being a bright camp lantern in the middle of the dark forest. If you think of it that way, it's not like you have to have 10,000 lanterns for any one lantern to have been useful if you're wandering around in the woods playing flashlight tag. That one camp lantern lets everybody remember how to come back to their center, how to come back to camp, as it were, how to come back to their center and how to be their own light. Cool. Nice part is this is a recording, so if you want to learn that rose and frame, or if you actually want to pick a topic and do it while I describe it, cool. Just rewind and go back and do it again. I'm Scout like Pathfinder, Bartlett like Pears. The radio show is Life Insights Live. The website is ifidknownthen.com, or if that doesn't stick in your brain, there's a shortcut, which is just not Scott. You can imagine when I put in my order someplace where they're going to call my name, or back when I used to be able to, my name was always pronounced, Scott? I know that's me. I go up and they go, is it Scott? And I go, no, it's Scout. Oh, I thought maybe they just spelled it wrong. Yeah, no. Notscott.com will take you into our website. You have to register for the website to download the radio shows. You're welcome to download a gaggle of them. And so together with that, I need to ask you two favors. One, please, if you would, treat yourself as a loved one, because you truly are. And two, no matter where on earth you are, take a second to notice that it's a perfect day to have a great day on purpose. Thanks, Noah. And cheers. Happy Dottie world to us.
Like it was 1,000 years ago, so it is today. as you open up your arms to the mystery way. All time is now, all moments are here. With every beat of our heart, bridging our breath near, to the cells of our body, to the story of our lives, to our community of healing, beauty in each other's eyes. Nautilus shell with its chamber of roots creates the ground for the thread to find the loop, weaving the womb, weaving the womb. So my friends, 1,000 years ago is today. 1,000 moments ago, we were taking your breath in, your breath out, and you were here. So I invite you to breathe that in. Breathe in that awareness. Breathe in that hope. Breathe in that possibility that as we seek the mystery, it is already within us. That mystery that lives in your very heart and in your very soul. We can claim it now. So find that mystery now. Find the mystery that you carry the seed for. Find the mystery that you breathe in your life for. You know it, and you probably live it. Now acknowledge it. Behold it. Bring it forth into your line of sight. Bring it forth into your deepest knowing. We are here, before and into the future. You are here in this moment now. Like it was 1,000 years ago, so it is today. As you open up your arms to the mystery way, all time is now, all moments are here. With every beat of our heart, bridging our breath near, bridging our breath near, the cells of our body, to the stories of our lives, to our community of healing, beauty in each other's eyes. The nautilus shell, with its chambers of roots, creates the ground for the thread to find the womb, for the thread to weave the loom. We are weaving in the loom, we are weaving in the womb, waiting to be born again, waiting to return again, waiting to this moment in our lives that will never be the same, like it was 1,000 years ago, so it is today. As you open up your arms to the mystery way, we are opening to the mystery now. We are opening to our history now. We are opening to the wealth of all that we can be. We can be. All moments are here. All time is now.
Thank you for joining us for this celebration of faith and fellowship. We'll be back next Sunday, and for those of you, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, you can leave them in the comments section. If you appreciate this video and the work that the Center for Creative Living is doing, please press like on the video. You can share the video, and also please subscribe, because that will help this community and the church grow. Remember, in these difficult and challenging times, the opportunity to give and support an organization that has done so much for the community is tremendously important. Please help the Center for Creative Living continue in the wonderful work that it does. We will make it through this. We will be stronger for it. Our faith will carry us. Be blessed, be safe, and have a wonderful week.